Day 4 on the Camino Portuguese Litoral route took us 25.6 kilometers from Esposende to Viana de Castelo. Alright, we're off day 4 of the Camino Portuguese, heading from Esposende to Viana de Castelo, about 25 or so kilometers, so a little bit longer than yesterday, and we're greeted by a little bit of rain this morning.
We're actually next to a river. It's very low tide, heading back towards the ocean. And today, we're aiming to stay in an albergue tonight where we don't have reservations. That's going to be a first for us. So we'll see how that goes.
The day started with some light rain that persisted throughout the morning. One highlight of the early day was a chance to go through the set location for Watership Down. Just kidding, but we did see a lot of rabbits.
We had breakfast and the forecast said that the rain was supposed to be letting up. It was just a mist. So we took off our extra layers and here we are. I know you probably can't tell, but soaked. Okay, this is our first time that the path actually takes us right down onto the beach. At least it looks rocky.
It was a fascinating and challenging day that provided evidence for the Sende Litoral being poorly marked in places and the Camino Ninja app not always being right for this route. At one point, we found ourselves walking right on the shoreline.
We're totally lost off the trail. The rocks are cool. We're back on trail. Don't tell them Brian doesn't like dogs.
This route is so lightly traveled compared to other Camino routes. In one village, we saw a tiny cafe and store, so we stopped for a bite, but they would only provide a drink. Jody then asked to buy something from the adjoining store. It was interesting because you could tell that they were not used to having pilgrims come through. As the morning wore on, the sun began to peek through the clouds. We stopped for lunch in a small village and met a Dutch couple who were walking portions of the Camino. We went through tiny villages that reminded us of the Camino Frances. We found several places where the trail had been overcome by nature. Sand dunes that the tide and wind had swept over the trail, and bushes and trees that had choked out the footpath. Our albergue that we planned on staying at was scheduled to open at 1:30 in the afternoon, so we were happy to be crossing the bridge into Viana de Castelo just ahead of that time.
Brian's showing that we're number one in line. It opens at 1:30 and it's about 1:20 something here.
It did turn out that we were not the first people in line. Instead, they moved you to an interior waiting area where we found out there were about 30 people ahead of us. After getting checked in, we went to explore the town. We had heard there was an amazing cathedral on top of a high hill. Instead of walking the hill, we took a funicular to the top.
Where we came from today. We walked across that bridge and we were lost along that shore over there.
The cathedral and the views did not disappoint. Additionally, we came across an older gentleman who uses antique photographic equipment to take your portrait. It was fun to watch him work.